Okay, welcome. If you clicked on this video, it's probably because you're looking at 1440p monitors. And believe me, I've done quite a bit of research myself that landed me on the next couple of monitors I'm going to be reviewing on the channel. But today, we're going to be talking about the 2021 LG GP83B. There's a good chance you've been following LG's Ultra Gear lineup through 2021 and the GP series of monitors that they're releasing this year and that have been released. I've been keeping an eyeball out, and of course I was looking at the GP850 for the 2021 model. But I landed on this GP83 because it has some solid specs. In fact, I couldn't find any differences between the GP850 and the GP83, and there's a $50 difference, but I want to let you know I put it through its paces before I recorded this part of the video, so we're going to be covering those specs. That's all coming up in this video, so please check it out, you guys. Before we move on, I do want to let you guys know a couple of things. First and foremost, we have over 90 videos on the channel, so definitely hit subscribe. Go check out those playlists. Tons of playlists on monitors, probably 10, 15, 20 different monitor videos. I put those playlists down on the homepage that you can check out. So do that. And we have a great Facebook group called Only Nerds by Techsessory. So go check that out on Facebook. There's a lot of conversation happening every single day about tech products. If you just look on the website for LG, it says it's a 144 Hertz, 1 millisecond response time, Nano IPS HDR monitor that packs a 27-inch display, beautiful 1 billion or 1.07 billion shades of color, and this thing is part of their Ultra Gear lineup. But if you dive a little bit deeper and you bought it from Best Buy, it'll tell you that it is a 165 Hertz monitor, which leads me to tell you that is the exact same refresh rate as the GP850 and the exact same HDR rating at HDR 400. So what makes this different than the GP850, and why does it cost $50 less? Well, I couldn't really tell you that right now, but we will cover what this monitor holds later in the video. Accessories that do come with this guy, of course, are going to be the monitor itself, a beautiful black and red stand. I love the stand. It's better than their cheaper monitor stands. It's actually got some good weight and definitely some good cable management to it. Again, you're going to get, like you get with the 850 series, you get the rotating monitor, the rotating stand, the height adjustment. You get a great cooling, kind of passive cooling radiator on the back. It has just nice venting holes with the red trim accents that I love. I love that about LG's Ultra Gear lineup. The monitor itself is very clean, nice flat angle, bezel-less kind of edge, at least on 3 sides. It's just a beautiful display. The stand itself comes out to kind of that Y on the feet and sits very sturdy on the desk. On the back, of course, you have your power input. You have 1 DisplayPort connection, 2 HDMIs, and then a USB 3.0 for firmware updates only. But that is enough to get you through what you need to get done, and having those 3 inputs is a nice benefit over some other budget monitors out there. So I'm going to cover a lot of what I unpacked. Like I said, I've spent the last week using this, really diving in to figure out what was useful for me in real life, not just specs that I can give to you. So we may pause and kind of look at something, dive a little bit deeper into it. Getting it set up, of course, you just plug it into your graphics card, your computer, your laptop, whatever you're using. It automatically senses the newest input that you have and gives you full display right there on the screen. The menus are actually a nice upgrade from the previous generation. So if you had like a GL or a GN Ultra Gear monitor, the menus have updated, changed. They're beautiful. It has this great insignia from LG on it, but I do have to say it does require this double tap of the settings button to get to the actual settings menu, to flip through your presets and to do your calibration. That is kind of a downside. The other downside is that the joystick is a bit small. just like the previous generations. I wish they would make that joystick just a little bit bulkier. That being said, I did take the time to go through and check out the different presets and do a calibration. And what I'll say is that the presets are pretty good, better than some of the other monitors that I've reviewed, you know, such as like say the Pixio, which is about $100 less. The LG wasn't quite as good as the ViewSonic VG monitor that I recently reviewed on the channel. If you guys want to check either one of those out, again, it's in that monitor playlist that I have on the channel. When I did get the calibration done, it was beautiful. I mean, phenomenal colors, just as I expected, because this is using a Nano IPS panel, which is again part of LG's TV technology and allows for beautiful, bright, good color accuracy out of this panel. And that's something that you're not quite gonna get from most manufacturers unless they're using an LG panel. Here's the big downside. If you're buying this monitor for HDR, it's actually not bad. No, it's not amazing. The calibration is pretty terrible. If you put it into HDR mode through Windows or through some sort of console, it is going to block you from most of your calibration and all your settings. So you do have to have some other way of doing that calibration. There are ways within Windows, and you know, you do get some functionality within the menus of the actual monitor, but it's not vast, and the accuracy, the color, the contrast it's okay. I was happy enough to leave it on for a couple of days while testing. It wasn't crushing blacks like the previous generation was. It's actually, the result was good, although I'd probably leave it off if I wanted to play any game that requires intense calibration, you know, anything that's like a very dark game. I probably wouldn't use HDR. You know, I want to move straight into kind of the motion capability, pixel response rate, because I know that's one of the most important things when you look at monitors like this 1440p 165 hertz. How does it perform? Does it really stack up to what else is out there? And is it worth the value that you pay for it? And I have to say that's one of the big reasons I think this sticks out above most 1440p monitors that I've tested and reviewed on this channel. I never do a screen capture when I do these tests because that takes away from overall performance and can cause bugs and issues in the actual tests themselves. So what I do is I take a camera at 120 frames per second and I capture what's going on physically when viewing the monitor. I like to go to Blur Busters because Blur Busters gives us a pretty good breakdown in what we can expect when gaming and doing anything that's like a fast-paced style motion. So I have a couple tests. I'm gonna put it right up here. I'm gonna show you guys on the actual video. This one you guys are all familiar with is the frame rate UFO test. This guy here, you can see there's a teeny bit of overshoot. This is, you know, just standard fast pixel response rate. In the overshoot, as you go down in frames, there's a higher error rate. And as you get up into the higher frame rates, you know, 144 plus, you're actually getting a better pixel response rate because we're on fast pixel response rate. I am slowing this down to about a quarter speed here, and you know, we're really breaking it down frame by frame. So up at 165 frames per second, the top bar there, we are actually getting a little bit of blur, a little bit of motion blur, but down on the lowest frame rate, which I believe is about 35 frames per second, very, very clear. Very clear, good performance here. This test is a gameplay kind of motion blur style. Overall, we're looking at motion clarity. Are we seeing any motion blur? Are we seeing any tearing, anything like that? So our top frame rate again is the lower, bottom is the higher frame rate. It's looking really good. I could really only pick out about one frame that really didn't do too well, and this could be a combination of the browser itself having issues and the actual monitor itself having issues. Very heavy motion blur, and the bottom higher frame rate, a teeny bit of motion blur here, but not a lot of like ghosting and overshoot and undershoot and things like that. This is breaking it down to, again, about a quarter speed. So we're really diving deep here. Similar result, very similar. So as we pick up speed here, we can see there is a bit more kind of ghosting effect within this particular test. It's not horrendous, and in fact, when you're looking at it with the naked eye, it looked very good. I had to really pick out what frame looked bad here, and this was it. This was the frame that looked the worst to me. This is one of the most important tests, and not one that I've seen done on another video. So this is a pixel response rate test from Blurbusters, and what I've done is gone into the menu and actually geared the pixel response rate up and down to see how it affects the performance of this particular test. So let's watch as we go through and we filter through from all the way off to the fastest pixel response rate here. Fast is a little bit of undershoot here. Faster is a little overshoot, and yeah, overshoot and undershoot in the lower frames. Normal is overshoot. And then off is undershoot. So it performed a little bit differently than we would normally expect. It highly depended on the frame rate. So again, at the top you have a higher frame rate, at the bottom you have a lower frame rate, but it affected them all almost equally, which tells me two things. Number one, either this pixel response rate that they have built into the monitor doesn't really do a whole lot, or it has a pretty solid capability of just handling those pixel refreshes just out of the box, and you don't really need to worry too much like you did on previous generations, as long as you have it dialed into the game that you play. Here we are getting into a bit of gameplay, and what I love to do and what I always tell everybody is, once you get into your favorite game, calibrate, because something that looks good on your desktop is going to look entirely different in the games that you play, and the color calibration within the games themselves are different than what Windows does. But this monitor itself did a decent job with Borderlands. Borderlands, again, is a lot of highly saturated colors, very dark sometimes in gameplay, but bright, vivid colors that really stick out. I do wish the contrast was a little bit better on this particular monitor, but I was able to calibrate it even more so than I did previously with just the basic Windows. And I did this manually in Gamer One. So if you want to do that, go to Gamer One, calibrate the best you can. I do have a calibration video on the channel, so again, go check that out. It's going to be in that monitor playlist, or would just search within the channel. You'll find a calibration video, and I use a similar monitor to do it with. So getting into gameplay here, I'm using a 3090 here, so of course I'm going to be getting just phenomenal performance at 1440p. That being said, there's really not a lot of ghosting or any to be heard of here. I mean, if we pause it on a couple of these interactions, these battles, absolutely just a teeny bit of ghosting. In Borderlands 3, this particular monitor destroys. I mean, destroys. The color could be a little bit better, but overall motion, pixel response rate, the handling capability, screen tearing, phenomenal, and you can see that in the particular video that I'm showing you. Yeah, that's just great. I mean, that's buttery smooth, you guys, let me tell you. Jumping over to Call of Duty, this is in HDR. I'm not recording in HDR, but what I will say is I love the intro scenes of Call of Duty. They've done a really good job mastering their video, and on this monitor, it looks great. And I think this monitor highlights it well with, again, with that Nano IPS technology. Very, very good quality. So this interaction here, looking very good, looking great. I do see a teeny bit of ghosting, but I'm moving around quite a bit. I've got my specs turned all the way up, and you know, I just have to say that this interaction tells me everything I need to know. Headshot, phenomenal accuracy, no lag, no tear, no blur, and it's just really, really performing well in this scenario, and that can't be said for every single monitor. Warzone, it does a great job here. So this interaction was kind of fun. I thought I wanted to pause on this even though I got killed. I'm tracking this guy. Look at that. I just dropped from 2 stories above him, and right below me, his character, or her character, I don't know, is just crystal clear. No tearing. I'm not seeing multiple images. I mean, it's just really, look at that. And even as I'm getting destroyed by this person, this Steezy Montana, I can see their character perfectly. I'm telling you guys, this is pixel response rate fast. Again, my frame rate is maxed out, and of course I am using the G-Sync capability of this monitor. Those three technologies combined just really scream. I mean, this monitor is a beast. Of course, we don't always use our monitors for gaming, and that's why I've set up a little bit of a test. I'm recording in 4K here, and I'm doing it at a 60 frames per second, watching a 4K video. And I know this isn't a 4K monitor, but I want to give it its absolute best performance that I can get. This is with Windows HDR on, although YouTube doesn't always give me HDR. That being said, the performance overall, you guys, this is a very high saturated color video here, and it's pretty good, but you can kind of see within the corners, some of those corners are getting a little dark, but overall not a lot of blooming, no halo effects, at least with this particular video, and the color turns out phenomenal. It's not oversaturated to the point where it doesn't look accurate. So of course I like to pull up some nature photos, some nature videos, because we're not only watching cartoons here, we are watching some other, you know, real life style TV. This video is a 4K video that has some great skylines that I want to be able to show you. So there's like a couple areas that I really like in this video, and it's that lava coming out of those billowing clouds and how just amplified it looks, how it looks very just vivid in your face. And as it picks out and uses the contrast capability to give you that bright molten lava with that heavy thick smoke behind it, it really just jumps out at you. This skyline actually says quite a bit about this monitor. The fact that we're in HDR and we're getting a very good gradient here, some light blues in the background and some deep dark blues in the foreground, really just match up well. There's no kind of bad gradient here. It's doing a great job. Again, very color accurate. That 98% DCI-P3 color scale is coming into play here with that Nano IPS technology. Now that we've covered color, contrast, motion, pixel response rate, and a plethora of other things, I do want to touch on one thing real quick, which is you console gamers out there. And of course, with 1440p, the most popular is the Xbox Series S and Series X. So if you're using an Xbox Series S or X, then what you're going to want to do is go check out my video that tells you how to unlock the 1440p and 120 Hz on this bad boy, but it works just as well as the previous generation GN850 tested by me on the Xbox Series S. So go check that out, subscribe to the channel so you can get access to all of those uploads that I have on the channel, 90, 100 plus videos. And it includes how to get this set up on your console, but I did confirm it works. Well, with all that said and all those specs left behind us, if you need to go back and kind of take a look to confirm that this is the monitor for you, then feel free, go back and take a look as many times as you'd like. I want to tell you what was good about it first, then we can talk about the cons and whether or not it was something that I would buy and keep and suggest to you to buy. So first and foremost, aside from motion and all that other stuff, the actual color and calibration of this monitor were phenomenal. It's very easy to do. The upgraded menus helped out a lot in that area. And the calibration turned out to be the best thing I could have done because the color, as you saw previously in the video, was highly accurate. I mean, it was like watching on a good 4K TV that was just really small. Even though it's not a 4K resolution, it was like watching a good movie on a good TV. Ease of use, this monitor is actually one of my favorites. The ability to rotate it, to adjust the height, and to plug in all of your inputs on the back. LG did a good job thinking this out before making these monitors, and they're much easier to plug in your HDMI sources, your DisplayPort sources, your USB sources on the back, because it's not underneath. It's actually behind. You can reach just right behind, plug it in, super easy. And of course, the icing on the cake from all of that is that the 165 Hz and the G-Sync work phenomenally. The pixel response rate was, I mean, just spot on. So if you want my settings that I use to calibrate this monitor and what I game at on like Borderlands and Call of Duty, check out below in the description. You'll have those so you can get the performance that I did. Again, I'm using a 3090 Founders Edition and a Ryzen 7 3700X. Now there are some drawbacks here, and I'm gonna kind of pick it apart because I want to be critical of what LG's been doing. And the first is the fact that it's $449 for this monitor. Like I said, I did a Pixio review, PXC327, and that guy was like $349, $329, and that guy performed motion-wise as good as this. Now, this definitely beats it on color and a few other areas. Is it really worth the extra $100 to get that when the HDR isn't that amazing? That's something you're gonna have to answer. I can't quite answer that for you, but I do think if we're picking it apart, $449 for a 1440p 165 hertz monitor, it's a little pricey considering we're gearing towards 4K more so than we ever have in the past. You know, the last con I really want to point out is the contrast. You notice how previously in the video I talked about doing an additional calibration in Borderlands. It's because when I opened up that game, the actual color it didn't pop. It didn't have that brightness in the details, and it wasn't able to pick out the dark and light areas next to each other as good as I would have hoped. But again, at the end of the day, it really wasn't bad. It was just, hey, it could be better. After it's all said and done, LG and their Ultra Gear lineup have really been reliable for me. I've reviewed, I think this is the third or fourth monitor I've reviewed on this channel. They've all actually been really solid, from 1080 to the three 1440p monitors that I've used of theirs. They're all very reliable. I've come to expect what they provide, and I kind of expected less, but they really surprised me with their menus, and they like really over delivered in the motion and pixel response rate. Those three things for me make this a go-to monitor. I would absolutely recommend. And if you're researching between brands right now, because I have tested out a few, this should be top of your list. That's really what I have, you guys. I've spent a week diving deep on this monitor. I'm gonna be doing an Asus TUF VG32VQ monitor review coming up, and it's pretty neck and neck, you guys. There's some good, creature comforts with that TUF gaming monitor that I'm going to be reviewing that aren't quite there with LG, but they are neck and neck, and the price is identical between the two of them. So subscribe to the channel because that video is coming up right after this. And of course, I have tons of other monitors for you to check out. You don't have to buy a 2021 model. You can buy a previous generation. The technology in this, it's slightly improved, but it's been happening in monitors for the last couple of years. So I'll stop talking, you guys. I'll let you kind of enjoy the research that you're doing. Thanks for watching the Techccessory channel with Travis, and I'll catch you in the next video.